Hello everybody, MechZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And yes, we're only a handful of days away from the big, highly anticipated Nintendo Switch 2 dedicated direct. We've been waiting for this sucker ever since they kind of gave us that first little teaser trailer for the Nintendo Switch 2, what it looked like with the brand new Joy-Cons and everything else in between, along with a small little mini glimpse of what will be the next new Mario Kart. And ever since then, it's been radio silence. People were thinking we're going to get just a general Nintendo Direct just to kind of set us up for the first half of the year before the Switch 2 would have came out. Maybe with some Switch 1 upcoming releases though, but they have not done that at all. The only thing we had recently was like with the release of Xenoblade Chronicles X, a great, amazing game though, but that's been basically it in terms of the Nintendo front. But here in about a handful of days or so, that will not be the case anymore though. And yes, like all things, when a big major Nintendo Direct comes up, hey, it's time to put on that thinking hat and it's time to go all out in terms of the predictions though, because it's only every big long now and then where you have a big Nintendo presentation or a direct where you're actually able to go through and make predictions for not just a standard direct, but for a brand new direct that's going to include brand new hardware. So those are few and far between, but we might as well go ahead and jump up in it though. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date. All things video game related, I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. All right, so there's a lot of different layers to look at in terms of this new Nintendo Direct that we're going to be getting here in a handful of days, though. Obviously, there's going to be brand new games that's going to be announced, the software, the potential UI that's going to be behind the new system, price points, any other kind of hardware accessories that's going to be included along the way, potential demos, like how they're going to be able to, what the Switch 2 is going to be able to do versus what the original Switch 1 is going to be able to do. And then a few other things in between that we just might not be personally thinking about, though. So I got to take this thing one step at a time in terms of all of these predictions, though. So let's just go ahead and just talk about the actual event itself and the way what we might be able to expect or see from it in terms of like them kickstarting off the event and what we can kind of see right out the gate running. So at the very beginning, I don't necessarily expect this to be like a January 2017 Nintendo Switch presentation where it seemed like they were all in like a live audience kind of feel and stuff. And if you think back to that big old presentation, that was like late at night here in America and stuff. I remember sitting down and watching that. I don't expect it to be anything like that. I feel like with this presentation, it's gonna be a little bit more streamlined in the sense of how you're gonna get all of the information in terms of like price points, new hardware and stuff, the games and everything else in between. I feel like it's gonna be really streamlined. It's gonna be a little bit snappy, but obviously they got to take their time to enunciate and elaborate on certain brand new things because you don't want to lose anybody partway in this presentation. So I'm fully expecting like Mr. Koizuma to show up in here, maybe Mr. Anuma and stuff like that. Obviously, we're gonna have the big president himself, Mr. Furukawa. He might actually be the one to kind of kickstart this thing off, or he might have one of his other spokesmen up in there. Now that I think about it, maybe Furukawa won't be in the actual direct himself, but obviously he's going to be approving a lot of this stuff though. But I'm expecting one of those big major Nintendo heads to actually showcase themselves off in the direct itself. There's no way they're just going to only show hardware and only games and not ever show somebody behind the scenes with an actual face that represents Nintendo. So let's just go ahead and get that out there though. After they go through and talk about it, I expect them to kind of showcase off the system like in person, like in hand, like them pulling the Switch 2 out of a dock or something like that, and then just kind of going through some of the new features that's going to be included within this. And a lot of the stuff has been in the rumor mill stuff, so this might not come to no shock or no surprise though. But I think at this point in the game, that's when they're going to go ahead and show off like the mouse features and stuff. It might be kind of showcased off in like a little bit of a CGI trailer, kind of like how we got with the original Switch 2 reveal or whatever though. But I'm fully expecting them to go ahead and just break down that mouse mode. And then I'm also expecting them to kind of break down the C button, whatever that happens to be. And I'm still going on a limb and saying yes, that's gonna be some way with sharing or connectivity or some kind of casting button. It got to be one of those few different things though. Now I don't expect them to kind of showcase off each one of these new features with the Switch 2 back because I feel like certain games are gonna wind up executing or using some of those features quite well, where then you take a pause with some of the game announcements they're giving you, and then they go ahead and manage to drop out one of those new features and kind of go a little bit in depth on how it works, what you can use it for, and everything else in between though. So I think those are the two major things that is going to differentiate itself from the Switch to the Switch 2. It's definitely that C button and that mouse button, which they're going to go ahead and showcase off between a whole bunch of games. All right, now that I got all of that out the way, price point, that'll be towards the end. We'll come back around to that. But now let's go ahead and talk about the game predictions, which honestly might be the reason why many of y'all are tuning into this video right now. Because literally, I think I have all this stuff split between Switch 2 dedicated games that's only going to be able to run on the Switch 2, and then maybe they'll throw a bone for Switch 1 users and say, hey, look, you also will have these if you have the Switch already. However, they might come in and hit you with that, hey, if you had the Switch 2 version of this thing, you might actually get some performance boosts or performance enhancements, which literally would kind of go to differentiate the console quite well when you kind of start showing some games that people might be already familiar or somewhat accustomed to, and actually go ahead and say, hey, this is the way how it's going to be running better. I fully expect them to probably do some kind of example with that with Breath of the Wild, because that would be the easiest one to kind of go ahead and showcase that off though. But all right, let's go ahead and jump up in these predictions. I say let's just go ahead and focus on the Switch 2 dedicated only ones. Let's go ahead and start with there and then work our way to some of the other ones that might be for Switch 1 and Switch 2. So I'm thinking when you go back and look at 2017, there was about 7-ish games that was announced for the Switch that was fully only for that system, not for a Wii U or not for a 3DS or something like that. Like literally you had Breath of the Wild, you had Dolly 1-2 Switch, you had ARMS, you had Splatoon 2, you had Mario Kart, you had Mario Odyssey, and you had Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I think there was like a Fire Emblem Warriors or something like that up in there. It's not fully first party with that one. It was a little bit weird though, but I mean technically it is, but whatever though. Those were all the games that you were basically getting that early on in the Switch's life. Now I'm thinking it's gonna be a similar rough number for that, maybe a little bit less. I was thinking anywhere in the net range of 5 to 7 games is roughly what they're gonna be dropping out for the first calendar year that the system's out on the market though. So starting off with the first one, let's just go ahead and get the obvious one out the room. You're gonna get the full unveiling of Mario Kart, whatever it's called. For the sake of purpose for this argument, I'm saying Mario Kart 9. Look, they already teased this mess, and we already know it's coming. Hey, it looks like you're gonna have a lot of interesting stuff added up in this game. It seems like the roster is going to be vastly improved to the point where it's like, hey, instead of your traditional, what is it, almost 12 characters you have on the card, it looks like it might be doubling up to like 24 or something stupid like that, though. So it's going to be kind of wild to seeing all the different changes that they might be possibly doing with that thing alone. But regardless, though, I think that's going to be some great stuff coming from Mario Kart, though. Don't have to really go too deep up on it, though, but I would really love to see some kind of mode with a double dash with us having that many playable characters to be able to add. You don't have to switch the characters, but at least be able to switch the items around. 8 Deluxe got us close with holding on to 2 items, but I would love to be able to switch them around and get that old classic vibe of Mario Kart Double Dash. All right, next up, I'm fully expecting us to get the next release for the brand new 3D Mario. Like, look, it's been a long, hot minute since Odyssey came out in 2017. Since then, shortly after the events of COVID back in 2020, I think it was roughly around 2021 or so, that's when we managed to get 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, that being the brand new thing with Bowser's Fury. And I think that was a great experience. And I feel like with this next new entry in the 3D Mario series, I still feel like it's going to be open sandbox style, like your Mario 64, your Sunshine, and your Odyssey, or the Bowser's Fury segment, though. But I think it's going to be a little bit more open and take a lot of parallels from Bowser's Fury and incorporate them into this game, though. I feel like it's a no-brainer to release this at least within the first year of the Switch 2 launching. Next, I was kind of debating on this one quite a bit though, but I have a strong feeling that I thought this was going to be a Switch 1 dedicated game, but maybe they took it back to the drawing board, patched it up, made it look a little bit more beautiful, a little bit more pristine, and then gonna drop it as exclusively on the Switch 2. And I'm referring to the brand new Fire Emblem game. Not necessarily brand new fully though, but it is going to be a remake of a game. And I'm referring to Genealogy of a Holy War. Because for the longest time, that has been in the rumor mill department for it only coming out, obviously, for the Nintendo Switch, though. But maybe Nintendo took that one back to the drawing board. Maybe they're kind of noticing that it's going to take a little bit longer for them to put out brand new games. So why not, instead of just only putting that out there on the Switch, hey, the way how graphically it's going to look and have that, that medieval flair back up in it, that might be a good selling point to say, hey, look, mature people that want to, play like a mature rated game, hey, here's a game for you right here. It can only be playable on the Switch 2. You have to remember this game wasn't necessarily localized outside of Japan, so Japan is familiar with this game. For us over here, like in the US or the European region, you're not familiar with it at all. So for a lot of people, this is going to technically count as a brand new game. Just only for the diehards that managed to, play the Japanese version, or if you're in Japan itself, had probably already experienced this game though. So I'm leaning more so on the side of that being a dedicated Switch 2 game. Next up, I think Monolith Soft is going to show up big in this next thing. Now, keep in mind, the last major thing that Monolith Soft worked on, at least fully 100% where they were making and, calling all the shots for, was Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, we know Monolith Soft, I feel like they're one of the best Nintendo developer companies that they have, point blank, period. They're personally one of my favorites, along with Insomniac Games over there with PlayStation and such. But they always do such a great job at pulling all of the resources and all the assets or whatever you're able to do with the system that they're working on and put it to its fullest capability. Like we saw that mess even with Xenoblade Chronicles X, which honestly could be the very last major game that's going to be released for the Nintendo Switch before you kind of get in this cross transitional period or whatever though. And I was thinking, could it be a brand new Xenoblade game? Could it be something else, a brand new IP? I'm leaning on the side it's going to be a brand new IP, but it's going to be called Xeno something. I don't know what that something would necessarily be, but I'm thinking it's going to be some kind of brand new IP. I feel like they're cooking something up, and I feel like they already completed the trilogy with Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3, so I don't think they have to do anything else special with it. I don't think they're going to branch off and do anything with the X side of things, but I could be wrong. They did, kind of wrap up some kind of conclusion stuff that they were getting teased in the original Xenoblade Chronicle X release for the Nintendo Wii U, but I digress. Monolith Soft's going to show up big some way, somehow, or they're going to be running support on one of these other big major games, though, because they're just that important to Nintendo. I fully believe that Astral Chain is literally going to be represented with a brand new entry in the series. Now, look, we got left off on that terrible cliffhanger tease at the conclusion of the first game. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, look, Astral Chain is way too good. I don't care if Platinum Games has to make it, if Nintendo has to take that IP and give it to somebody else. I think they were cooking with a really well-developed story, and I think they can just take it on a whole new level. I would love to see Platinum Games still working on it, though, because, like, look, I don't know what all Platinum Games is really up to at the moment, outside of them, working with Xbox on, the latest new Ninja Gaiden game, though. But, I mean, outside of that, they hadn't really been known to do anything here recently, at least not too much, though. So, hey, get to working on that Switch 2 version for Astral Chain 2, man. Like, come on, you got to give it to me. Give it to me, y'all. All right, and that basically does in terms of most of my first party games. I think it's going to be anywhere between the net range of 5 to 7. You don't want to announce way too many, because otherwise then, some of those announcements might lose a little bit of flair. But I do think there's going to be some major tadpole third-party announcements. Those are going to be a little bit trickier to predict right here. But I'll go ahead and throw out at least a couple out there. I feel somewhat pretty confident on there being a good chance of it happening. One of them I'm saying is going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, yes, that game has been out for a hot minute. At this point, with the specs that what could be revealed within the Nintendo Switch 2, I think there's going to be a really great solid chance that that's going to be fully showed and say, hey, look, we're going to be able to run games like this that you were able to run on your PS4. The other big game, I say this one's going to be a super big one if it does show up. Another one from Square Enix, I'm saying Dragon Quest 12 is going to get its full proper unveiling in this presentation right here. I mean, yes, they kind of almost did some similar things and hit some similar wavelengths with Dragon Quest 11S when it came to the first original Nintendo presentation back in January 2017. So let's go ahead and run that mess back one more time here, and let's just go ahead and say that Dragon Quest 12, we're going to get a first good look outside of that original teaser we got like years ago. Finally go ahead and make an appearance though. So that's where I'm leaning at in terms of dedicated Switch 2 only game. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look at a few games. I don't know if they're going to give them any spotlight, but there's a chance that they could show up. I figured I'll just go ahead and throw them here up on this list though. So these are Nintendo Switch games that obviously, yes, you'll be able to play within your Switch 2, but also still be able to give Switch 1 users, until they manage to get their hands on the next new shiny new system, something to play with, at least for the time being. One of the things is Metroid Prime 4. I think we're finally going to get another good look at that game and maybe finally get a release date on it. And then, yes, they're also going to confirm that there's a Switch 2 SKU for this thing, along with the original Switch 1 SKU. I think that's going to play out perfectly. Almost be something similar to, I would dare say, as like a Breath of the Wild. And I'll also go out on a limb and say this. I think that will be one of the potential launch day games. I think Mario Kart 9 will be a launch day game. I also think Metroid Prime 4 will also be a launch day game, at least on the Switch and the Switch 2. So that way you have your multiplayer game and you have your single player game. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that one out there. Next, I think we might get another brief glimpse at Pokemon Legends ZA. Maybe. That one's a huge maybe because the Pokemon Company acts really weird up on this thing. Hey, it could be something quickly shown off as like a sizzle reel or something like that. They might not necessarily have to go all in depth because they're going to slowly trickle out a little bit more information here and there as the months get closer to the holiday, which that's what it's slated as now. But we all know what holiday means for Pokemon Company. It basically means November. That's what they always do every single time though. So that's what I'm expecting in terms of that. I know Kirby always typically likes to get a game releasing almost every single year. Every now and then you'll get an off year where there's not going to be anything for Kirby. But I'll go ahead and say this, Kirby Planet Robobot, that will be a Switch 1 game. And maybe they'll go ahead and just announce it here in the Switch 2 dedicated direct as well. Now, the very last one. Oh man, we know that there's going to be something Zelda related announced at the Switch 2 presentation. The question is, what would that be? For a lot of people, they were thinking that could be Wind Waker, that could be Twilight Princess or something like that. I mean, if you were to think back, we did manage to get Tears of the Kingdom a couple of years ago, so I'm not expecting the next big major 3D Zelda game to come out. No, that mess is still cooking for the Switch 2, the release maybe 3 or 4 years after the system has been on the market though. So you can go ahead and set those thoughts aside. Some people might have been thinking it could be a brand new 2D Zelda game though, but we're literally coming right off the heels of Echoes of Wisdom that came out last year. So does that necessarily seem to be the case? I know Anuma and all of them at Nintendo have been saying, hey look, we would like to put out a new Zelda game every single year though. So it doesn't, at least when I go through and start lining stuff up, it doesn't seem like you will have a brand new Zelda game that's brand new and original. But it would make sense if it was like a remake or something like that. So I'm leaning on the lines of, hey, they're gonna finally give us only Wind Waker. Notice how I didn't say Twilight Princess, because Nintendo can get away with selling, Wind Waker separately and Twilight Princess separately, not doing that as like a dual pack or whatever though. But yeah, selling that for $60 MSRP, boom, you can play it on your Switch or your Nintendo Switch 2 and just have a happy-go-lucky field day with that title though. And then that way people can finally stop bothering them about it, or at least for Wind Waker. Can't say the same about Twilight Princess though. All right, and that will basically do it in terms of the predictions, in terms of just the announcements themselves. Obviously, they'll go as soon as they're done with most of those games, or maybe in the midst of it with all of those announcements, they're going to go ahead and sprinkle in like what the new UI will look like and stuff. I'm fully expecting, hey, the eShop should get a total revamp. Everything should be faster. I would dare say I don't know where or not I would kind of lean on in terms of like themes. Like if they're actually going to do something besides the basic old black and white, I would love to see it, especially if they manage to increase the memory size on the Nintendo Switch 2, which let's go ahead and throw this out there. Unlike like PlayStation's or Xbox's presentations where they're kind of getting to the specs like the teraflops and all of that, don't expect anything like that from Nintendo. They're going to just showcase off what the games look like and what you're going to be expecting to see in terms of the software. In terms of those actual specs, closest thing you might get in terms of specs will be like the storage, like I'm fully expecting there to be like what 64 or maybe 128 gigs in the internal storage. They'll tell you something about, hey, you can stick micro SD cards up in there. There might be a special micro SD card that you might have to stick up in there that's like an upgraded version that's like a faster processing micro SD, like what was it, the Express cards that SanDisk is also using. I'm expecting them to say something or be in the fine print somewhere where they're gonna have all of that as well, and a few other things here and there though. But that's all you're gonna be expecting in terms of like specs. It won't get too heavy and get too convoluted or whatever though. If you want to get into all the nitty gritty stuff, you have to look at Digital Foundry or you have to probably look on Nintendo's website itself though. And then lastly, that brings down to the question of, well, what would this system be priced at? The system, along with some of the other accessories, like maybe like a dedicated Switch 2 Pro controller and all of that. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think the Switch 2 is gonna be priced appropriately at $400 MSRP here in America. Obviously, you gotta do your conversions and stuff to change the currency from Japan or European or wherever region you happen to be at. But at least for here in the US, I'm gonna go on a limb and say yes. I fully expect this thing to be 400. That will be competitively priced quite well, right underneath the PS5 digital version, which is 450, or the PS5 with the disc version, which is priced at 500. Now I know the tariffs and stuff might get some people kind of worried here or there though. I'm just hoping that that $400 price point will stick and hold. And I also will go out and say there's going to be two different SKUs for this system. There's going to be that baseline 400 that just only comes with the system itself. And I'll say there's going to be a 450 version that will have Mario Kart bundled up in it as well, though. I think they could possibly pull that off as well. Maybe 460 ish if they want to push it and just kind of round the number out just a little bit, though. Because I'm fully expecting brand new Switch 2 games, ones that have like a pretty hefty budget. That's obviously a AAA game. I'm fully expecting those games to cost $70 now instead of 60. Same thing like what they were doing and testing the waters with Tears of the Kingdom. Just go ahead and get ready for it. Because honestly, I don't see any other kind of way how they're going to be looking at a PlayStation game and be like, oh, that is worth, in terms of its money value and stuff, more than Mario over here. Ain't no way Nintendo's going to be sleeping out on that mess, though. That's the reason why we saw them testing the waters with Tears of the Kingdom. And honestly, I think that's going to basically do it in terms of all my predictions, though. So I think I have a very solid list with everything I managed to say up in this one thing right here. So overall, there's gonna be a lot of hype and anticipation for the Nintendo Switch 2 dedicated direct. That's gonna be releasing here in a handful of days, though. But I would love to see all of your thoughts and your own predictions down in the comment section down below on any of the stuff I happen to mention. Granted, I was trying to shove as much content as I possibly could, at least within this somewhat short video right here, though. But me, as well as my good buddy Steven on the Zarcast podcast, will be back at it, giving our predictions as well in that podcast episode on Sunday night. So if you want to hear more predictions or some things I might be able to spin off of with my co-host on the pod, hey, make sure to kind of keep an eye on the channel because I got y'all covered for at least one more round of predictions right there. Maybe some things I didn't say here, but maybe I'll hold some things out for that show over there, though. But that's going to basically do it in terms of today's video, though. But if you really like this video, make sure you're going to hit that like button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing those. So remember, y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.